Fixed Ops Focus is live. Steve Shaw, professional CSI assassin, Dave Rogers, the guy who keeps saying, "We can fix this," while the ship sinks. Iconic duo.
Dave, welcome. It's good to see you again. What's on your mind? How you doing?
Well, I'm gonna deviate from normal, and I'm gonna tell you that it was 74 degrees today and sunny. 74 degrees. We had 2 days in a row, so it was nice. It was so I'm in a great mood. I think everybody's in a great mood. You know, you ride around, you see everybody outside and stuff, like they came out of their hibernation for the last 2 months. So, other than that, just back to the grind. Right? It's a new month. 10th day of the month right now when we're recording, and just trying to have fun, trying to figure out if the spring season is going to bring more business.
Yes, is Punxsutawney Phil going to see his shadow or whatever, however that works, right? Isn't he up there by you?
Yeah. That was February 2nd, I guess. And I think the little shit didn't see it, so I don't know what that means, but I don't think he saw it. So
Well, I'm in South Santa Catarina, and we're on the opposite. We are on the opposite seasons. So right now we're leaving summer, going into the fall. So right now it's similar, but it's closer to 80s and 90s right now where I'm at. It's absolutely wonderful. So hate to rub that in, but
thanks. You do every day anyway, so what's the difference?
so I'm on a
One of
trip,
these
right?
days I'll call you and you'll be in Nova Scotia or something. It'll be cold.
Hey, when I get back, I have to go to Sheboygan. I have to go to
Okay.
Wisconsin. So I'm
Okay.
sure there's only 1 or 2 days of summer in Wisconsin anyway. So I'm sure that it'll be cold. So you can I'll be there on a Tuesday so we can have a conversation.
We're gonna get Damon to hire you in the winter up in Canada. That's what we're gonna do.
I used to tell I had a buddy that worked up in at White Bear Lake up in Minneapolis. And for some reason, he would always want me to come up in March. And I said, "Look, bro, I'm happy to come up, but my price goes up when the temperature goes down." It
So what's
works.
on your mind today, Steven?
Well, so I did go on vacation, and I shouldn't let the cat out of the bag. I had a pedicure recently, and
Nice.
so I go get a pedicure, and it's a creature comfort. It's something. It's great. Get a little mani, get a little petty. I don't get my nails colored, and I do not get I don't even get the clear coat. I don't like the feeling of the clear coat on your nails. But it is nice to have them go in, and because we live in the heat and walk on the beach, so it's nice to have your feet taken care of, right? I did have a doctor tell me, because I run marathons. He says you have superior feet, so I make sure that I keep my superior feet nice and in shape. I'm here, and I'm thinking about this. Totally reminded me of, this is a car dealership 101, right? So I'm at a place at the mall. There's a place in Port Richey, the Port Richey Mall. And there's a big sign on it that says, if the Port Richey Mall, it says, hang in there, because if the Port Richey Mall can make it, you can too. And there's literally like two shops in the place, but one of them is a Vietnamese place where they do our pedicures. So I go in there getting a pedicure, and right in the middle of the pedicure, the lady's phone rings, right? Which this could go all kinds of directions. Like, do you answer the phone when you're with the customer or
Right.
whatever?
Right.
But so I could talk about appointment, but this kind of leads me down the appointment path. So I'm sitting there, and she's taking care of me and doing all this. The phone rings. And then she says, "Oh, yes." And I won't do my best Vietnamese accent because we could get thrown off YouTube or something. But so I said, and so she's talking to the person, and you could hear a little bit. And the person in the background said, "Yeah, I'd like to come in at 5 o'clock. There's going to be 2 of us. Can we have an appointment?" And she says, "Absolutely. 5 o'clock tomorrow. I'm going to note that down. I got you taken care of, and you're going to be with, so and so. We'll be looking forward to seeing you." As soon as she finished up with the customer, she hung up the phone and went right back to working on me, right? There was no writing it down. There was no putting it in a log. It was, yeah. Come on. We got you set. I look forward to seeing you at 5 o'clock tomorrow. And then back to bed. There's no way she's going to remember all the people that called that day for their appointment. Right? But it reminded me, like, that's car dealer 101. That's how we do appointments.
I used to tell the story all the time, and it's true, and it was me. I was working at a Nissan store. I was the only writer in there. I took the appointments, wrote the ROs. It was all handwrites at the time, right? And I used to write like 40 cars a day. I mean, I'm not bragging, but that's what we could handle. We had 8 technicians. It was Nissans. It was pretty easy back in the early 90s. But I'd answer the phones. I would never really write anything down on the appointment calendar. I never did, right?
Right.
So one day, I had a girl that would come in every once in a while, help me out, and So she comes in one day. She's in early in the morning, right? And I get done with the mad morning rush, and I was like, what the frig is it? Everybody shows up at the same time. And she looks at me, she goes, "You really want to know?" And I said, "Yeah, I really want to know." Like, I don't know. She goes, "You tell everyone to come in at 8 o'clock." And I'm like, "I do?" She goes, "You tell everyone to come at 8 o'clock. You don't tell anybody come at 7:30. You don't tell anybody come at 9." And she goes, "They're lined up." She goes, "That's you." And I was like, I never realized. You know what I mean? And I've been doing it for years. So, it was an eye-opening experience, but I've seen it for years, the same thing. Nobody writes it down, which drives me crazy. Now we have appointment schedules. I think we're a little bit more advanced than we used to be.
Yeah.
There's still those appointments. There's still those ones. And I think, the side effect or the ramification is you put it in the computer, because I'm afraid of the service advisor. When you walk in, Steve, and you say, "I called and I scheduled an appointment," and I
Yeah.
can't find you in the system, then
Yeah.
I start treating you like you're a liar, right? "Oh, really? Who'd you call? Are
Yeah.
you sure you called? Did you call this dealership? I don't know if we can get you in," like, like, because you're gonna get one of those.
Well, listen, my pet peeve in life, and I'm not a manager anymore, but if I have to do an oil change, right? If I have to, like an Express, and we had sort of had this conversation before, I am, and as a service advisor and a manager, I'm saying, come on in right now. You come in right now. You come in right now. And I will adjust my people. I will grow my business until I cannot take it. Now, the funny thing is, I had a guy, I was doing a 20 group in Phoenix, Arizona one day, right? Best story in the world. I'm at a 20 group, and they're having a discussion about appointments and so on, and how fast you make, whatever, technician staff, all this crazy stuff is going on, back and forth conversation. A guy gets up from an independent shop, and he's at a place called Sun Devil Automotive in Phoenix, and they have expanded from the Phoenix area to the Vegas area, out to Dallas, into Texas, right? So they've expanded. And the gentleman that owned the company goes, "Hey, all you car dealers, I just want to thank you guys." And they're like, and we all thought that he was going to say, "Thank you for, getting to work with you and learning all this great stuff from you guys." And he goes, "I just want to thank you for helping me grow my business." And like, what? And he goes, "Well, all of you guys make people wait for an appointment." He says, "Some of you guys are a day out, 2 days out, a week out, whatever." He says, "Our service is called right now service." And he says, "I will have a technician standing around waiting for the next customer to come in." And he goes, I will keep hiring people as long as I have one technician standing around. He goes, "Because we take care of business now, and all of you guys at car dealers take care of business down the road. And all of your customers that don't want to wait that 1 day, 2 days, or a week, they come see me, because my guy's ready to take care of them right now." And so I am of the opinion that that's how we have to do business. And I know that doesn't make me popular, but if you want, the way I see it is, if we want to grow our business to these extreme levels, like Damon said, and he was a big appointment guy too, though. But I said, if we want to grow our business, we have to drive business in right this minute. So, whereas I thought it was funny, the lady at the shop, she's like, "Yeah, come on, 3 or 5 o'clock, sure." And they got a line of chairs. "Come on down, we'll get you taken care of."
Listen, I think that there's a happy medium. I'm all for same day service. Bring your car down. I'm all for that. I think if somebody calls me up and says, "Listen, I'm going on a trip. I screwed up, or going on a trip. I want to get my oil change, or I want to come in today. I got the day off," whatever the case is, bring it down. I'm going to get you in. Can I have your last name? I want to put you on the system just so everyone's expecting you. I'm not saying no, right? The other thing I'll say is, "Steve, you're in a hurry." "Yeah, all right, listen, schedule's a little heavy at 11 o'clock. Why don't you come in at 1? Right? And if you say no, then come in at 11 o'clock. I'm going to get you in." You know what I mean? Like, you can do this without being a jerk off, and without postponing them. I think with the same day or next day service for an oil change, I think all the time. Now, you have to be careful. You can't just go, "Oh, just an oil change," because that diminishes your service. I hate when people do that. Right?
Right.
And then number two is, you could look in a computer to see what they're due for. We used to do it in the old, do it, pull it up real quick. But I agree with you. Bring the car in. Come on down. Like, you could tell by the person's voice, "I need to come in today. I got off today. I got scheduled out. I'm going away on Friday," whatever. Come on down. We'll take care of it. I think any place that doesn't do it, and it drives me crazy if my people won't do it, but if you also call me up and you want to schedule an appointment, I need to schedule an appointment for you. right?
See,
I'm
I'm
just
good with I'm
yeah,
totally good with that, making the appointment.
yeah.
I'm
So
just
if you request an appointment, say, I'm coming, I want to come in because there's a lot of people when you're in the store that want to schedule appointments.
okay.
My Philly Honda store back in the 90s, they started this no appointment necessary, right? That
Right.
was their thing, no appointment necessary. It morphed into we don't do that here. We don't take appointments. So
Okay.
everything was bring it in. It was chaos. You'd pull up to this dealership. It opened at 7:30 in the morning. There was a line down Essington Avenue, like
Mhm.
a state inspection line, like they were like, where they were lined up to get concert tickets. It was, and you know what it was? You had 80 people bull rushing you at 8 o'clock in the morning. You know what their hours per hour were? Point 0.9. They couldn't sell shit, right? So,
What
but no, and it's just one last thing. But I'm sitting there one day and a customer calls and wants to make an appointment, and the service writer says, "We don't do that here." Which, my owner said, "You better get rid of this no appointment necessary because it's causing a lot of havoc." So there is a happy medium on this stuff. And I know there's places out there that love it, no appointment necessary. But I'm just going to tell you, unless you got a fleet of 100 loaner cars, you're going to have a hard time, capturing enough work to make that viable.
well, that see, we could debate that, right? Because I would say to you, and Steve's, my famous line as I was growing up in the business is, you don't have enough techs. Now, again, Steve is old school. He hasn't been in the business in, 15 years. I've been a trainer. And I believe, again, I'm going to get people mad at me, but you can hire people if you want to, or you can't. And so I think the retention side is where we could hire 20 techs today, but we only keep 19 of them, right? The people leave us for
We
a
keep
myriad
one, we lose 19, right? That's
Right,
the
we're
other
gonna
thing.
lose 19. So I even did that. I did a study with a dealer group one time. They hired 27 technicians one quarter, but they lost 25. I'm like, okay, well,
Right.
we might want to find out why all these people left us. But the thing about it is, when I watched this dealership in Los Angeles grow from, a normal size store, 4,000 hours up to 10,000 plus hours, became this was not my store, it was another store, but it became the world's largest Ford fixed operations. It was no appointment necessary. Come in right now. And it was a 30-minute minor service or it was free, and never gave an oil change away because they staffed for it. They were prepared for that. Similar to what the guy from Sun Devil says, I will have someone ready to work on your car momentarily or right this minute. And so, it is a mindset, is what I personally believe. It's a mindset of how do we go from, zero to hero, and we never stop. The dealer, they're at 2.5 hours a ticket. It was a Ford store in their retail operation. And so, like you said earlier, we're not losing, we're not gonna, if we're prepared for it and we're staffed appropriately. Yeah, if you just say everybody come in and I got 20 techs or I have 2 oil change guys, yeah, well, we're just shooting ourselves in the foot. But if
That's
we're
what they were
going
doing.
right. And so again, that's kind of why that's why I love to be on the training side versus the consulting side. Because if you want me to come in and consult, we're going to get down to what's the goal, right? And we want to grow, we want to be there. Well, we're going to go get to some crazy shit, like what Damon had to say, or we're going to grow and we're going to make this happen. But it's not it's not the way that we did it before. And if you want to grow, we're going to grow. But you got to allow people to show up at your store. You got to allow people to come in and come in and come in and take care of that business. But that's got to be a mindset from the manager's got to go, I'm ready.
I agree. I agree. Listen, I used to run my stores and it was controlled chaos. That's
Yeah.
what I liked, controlled chaos. And you know what? I could get you in. You wanted an oil change, I get you in. But
Yeah.
I talked to the customer. I would just see, I'd feel them out, right? Because not everybody. There's people that don't want to come in, and you're capped by facility. You got 10 bays, right? You got you're in a Chrysler shop. You could have some big heavy work. You have no idea. You pull 5 green Grand Cherokees into the store with a check engine light, and you're going to have 5 different fixes for those 5 different cars, right?
Right.
So you pull 5 Toyota Corollas in, you're going to have the same fix for that check engine light. There's a total difference. You go to Mercedes-Benz. I made a mistake one time. I'm in a Mercedes store. Tell you this. I'm at the Mercedes store. My previous store had been a Toyota store. So when I get up there, they're like, you're a Toyota guy. You don't know anything about it. I'm like, the car comes in, that door broke. It leaves that door fixed. Doesn't get any more complicated than that, right? And they're like, oh, yeah, right? So I'm in there. The phone's ringing one day. This lady calls up, headlights out, something like that, right? I don't know, early 2000s E-Class, right? I'm like, come on down. Come on down. That's the way I am, right now, right? Bring it down. Of course, the car comes down and, pop a bulb in, guys. Let's go. Right up in RO. Yeah, let's get a bulb. A bulb? Yeah. 50-50. I go, what do you mean a bulb 50-50? I go, 50-50. So the lady's waiting in the waiting room. They come back. It needs a wire harness. I'm like, you can't get the goddamn thing to work. They go, nope, we need a wire harness. I'm like, the sockets go bad and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, but I don't care. The lady called the next day. Her headlight was out. Bring it on down. That's the way I was, because I
Right.
gave that person a loaner and kept the car,
Yeah. The
But
body shop.
but yeah, oh yeah, they ground my ass up for that one. They don't like, you Toyota boy, yeah, just bring it in, just bring it. Well, listen, that's just the way I think, right?
Yeah.
But I do think you have to be, there's a caveat. You have to be equipped for it. You have to be staffed for it. You have to have a facility that can handle it. We talked about it once before down south. These big behemoth dealerships. You pull into the center lane. The cute little girl sitting there with the pad, right, and her shorts on. Daisy Dukes. Hi, Mr. Shaw. Did you call ahead? Yes, I did. Let me see. Oh, you're here for the main shop. Pull over here, right underneath the overhang, because it's outdoors. No, I didn't call. I just needed an oil change. Great. Pull over here, and you have the 8 pits lined up outside that they could drive into, right? That's real. I mean, okay. Yeah, you never have to call for an oil change if that's the setup you have. But that's not the Northeast. And it probably wasn't your California dealer either. You probably had facility.
The one in California, the one in California was it was a monster. No question about it.
You probably didn't have extra land, is what I'm saying. You probably
No,
didn't have
no. They didn't have extra land, but they maximized every
Yeah.
space.
That's good.
What pisses you off more when you go to the grocery store? What is the number one thing that would piss you off at the grocery store?
I can tell you, when you get to the checkout aisle and there's no cashiers. That's the
And
number one thing.
There's 18 or 25,
Lane.
checkout lanes, and there's 2 cashiers. And so now they put you over here to the self checkout, right? And so I look at it from that perspective is there needs to be a cashier in every lane. So I did the hard job, and like frictionless, right? There's the friction point. It says at Publix. Now for the easy part. Well, it's not easy if I'm standing in line behind 10 people. So, and for whatever reason, every time I go to the grocery store at whatever time of the day, at noon, 3 or 7 o'clock at night, it seems to be the busiest time of day. But Publix doesn't have, the grocery store here doesn't have enough cashiers. Personally, I don't want to go check myself out at the self checkout.
I hate checking myself out. It takes too much time. I can't stand it.
Give me a discount, maybe, but
Right.
there should be enough checkers or enough people at the checkout lane to take care of that. And I am of the ilk or of the mindset that same thing for us. If there's going to be 50 people that show up in the morning, then we have to be prepared for that, and we have to be ready for that. And if I'm going to say come in, there was another store in SoCal. It was a small Ford store, and they wanted to do Saturday service, and the dealer thought, hey, let's just line up the rental cars. And so when someone shows up on a Saturday morning, because, they'd open up at 7 and there would be this, all these cars showing up at 7, or there would be a line of cars down the street. So the dealer said, let's have rental cars staged so the guy can drop their car, get in a rental car, and drive away. Well, you know what? Nobody wanted a rental car on Saturday. Why? It's 7 a.m. I want to get my car serviced, get my hair cut, and do all my errands.
Get the hell out of here.
Well, you know what the answer was? Why don't we open up at 6, right? So let's open up at 6. Let's get prepared. Let's get people in. And so the manager says to me, well, Steve, what happens if I get here at 6 and then there's people lined up? And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe we open up at 5. It's like people are showing up at your establishment and you are turning them away. And so if people show up at 5 a.m. and there's a line of people out at 5, because I could make the argument, and I used to do this all the time, because everybody knows that I like to talk about quarter time. And if you maximize the multi-point, you got to have the multi-point back in 15 minutes, right? Well, quarter time in Steve Shaw's world, it starts the moment I drive into your drive. And so you can tell me that you can get an oil change done, but if you want to maximize that opportunity with me, quarter time starts the minute I drive in the drive. You're on the clock when I pull in your parking lot. And so if I'm waiting behind 10 people, yeah, I'm going to get an oil change and get the hell out of there because I got shit to do. So we have to staff. And if that's the case, then if 6 a.m. is the right time, 5 a.m. or 24 hours a day, like Damon said, we've got to get to that mindset. That's my personal feeling. That's how I would run my business. And if somebody hired me to do it, that's what I would tell them to do. We got to be available. We got to make it easy for our customer to give us money. And if they want to show up at 5 a.m., that's what your buddy did, right? That's why he did mobile service. You know, if we don't want you here, then we got to come to you. And so that's why we have the mobile service, is so we can go out to you, keep you off our lot, make it convenient, make it frictionless, and we can do that. And so my mentality may or may not resonate with everybody. And I know I get in a lot of trouble, which I just keep in my own lane and teach people how to sell lots of stuff while they're there. Yeah. Yeah.
Overcome all the objections. Well, I think there's a couple aspects of what we do. Like I use, like you go to Vegas, right? And you go to check into one of these big hotel casinos and stuff. Normally check-in time is like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, right? Roughly, right?
Yeah.
When you get there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, as opposed to the supermarket, every one of those pedestals is filled.
Yes.
Every single one. There's a person with a jacket on, whatever it is. Some of those people are in housekeeping. It's all hands on deck. First thing in the morning for checkout. It's probably less now because people just check out now than it used to be. But
Yeah.
check in, every one of those stations is filled as a general rule in the afternoon, because they want you to be able to check into your room, obviously, as quick as possible, right? So that's the friction point that they eliminate by doing that.
Mhm.
Now, in our business, you have that front level service advisor, which again, I think we fail a lot of times by having enough people on first thing in the morning, right? We should have more advisors, because I think sometimes customers don't necessarily want to wait. They don't have to wait. They got a ride coming, whatever it is. So if you can get them in and out real quick in the write up area, you're gonna take away that point from 'em, which is, I've always used that. Let's staff a little extra in the morning. Let's have a couple extra valets. Let's do that, because I think that's the first part of it. The second part is, you got to have techs on that can do it, because how many times have you been getting your ass handed to you? You write them up at 7:30. The guy decides to wait. That's usually the drop-off time, 7:30, right? The techs might mosey in at 8.
Right.
And all of a sudden, the guy at 8:05 is going, "Why isn't my car done yet?" And you're like, "The mechanics don't start till 8, buddy. Like, we open 7:30 for drop-offs. I didn't know you were waiting," right? I mean, it's happened a million times.
Yeah.
I think there's differences, but I do think, listen, I think, if you open up the doors at 7, you probably should have a tech or two in at 7. You probably should, right?
Well,
Maybe
yeah,
not a full staff, but maybe a couple.
why is it that we try to, because I can relate this to a hotel story. Why is it, like, I show up at 7 o'clock, or a line of people show up at 7, and I'm an advocate. Certainly they're in a hurry, but what do is we try to, as an advisor, rush you through this process so I can go from car number 1 to that last car at the back of the drive, right? I got to hurry, 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 so I can finish and then have 9/10 of an hour. Or the managers out there just rushing people, come on, man, get this done, get this done, get this done. Instead of, I would look at the manager, or the support staff would be out there. "Hey, Dave, can I get you, while you're waiting on your service advisor, can I get you a cup of coffee? Can I invite you in here to do this? Can I do this? Your advisor will be with you in just a minute." And I, as a manager, can go out there like the guy with the white napkin. I could walk out there as a manager or a general manager and say, "Hey, you know what? We're just a little bit busy. As you can see, we're a little bit busy today. Can I get you a coffee? Can I get you the newspaper? Hey, by the way, we have a kiosk over here. If you're in that big of a hurry, we can walk over here. We can get you checked in on the kiosk and get you out of here." Instead of rushing the person through the process, rushing our staff through the process, that's why those things are often missed, is because we're just in a hurry. We're not walking around a car. We got to get to the end, and all of that stuff that we say that we stand for just goes right out the window.
Well, that's almost like the Disney thing, right? You're waiting in the long line and they entertain you and you don't realize how long the line is, right? And again, you can do that. I think there's ways to do it, like you said, with the coffee machine and do all different things. But, you still have to overcome the objection if you can't get that car in the shop, because that's the second part of what we do, right? Writing you up and getting you out of there is a big part, but writing you up if you're waiting and then getting your car in the shop, that's actually the next challenge. That's just where I think, we talk about this a lot. Managing the different aspects of the business becomes a challenge for some people, because they're not good with that. Some people are better off in the back end, dispatch, getting the cars done, whatever it is. Those people are generally not your most customer facing friendly folks, right? So what are they going to say? Wait. Well, what does that mean? The guy waits, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
mean we're going to rush and get him in the shop. It means he's going to wait. Well, he can wait, right? How many dispatchers have you ever heard us say that, right?
So I've said it
million.
myself.
Yeah, yeah. So, I do think that, the advent of loaner cars, the Ubers, the Lyfts, the valets, and all that stuff, if we use that stuff to our advantage, I think I heard somebody saying, who wants, maybe it was Damon that is saying, who wants to wait in a store with a crappy TV station and crappy coffee, right?
Yes, exactly.
Nobody, your best bet is to get them the hell out of there. So, I agree with you 100%. Come on down, get the keys, as we always were told, get the keys. But, there's a nuance to balancing that schedule out to the customer's expectations.
There
You got
was
to
a
figure it out.
who was the company for a while, Dealer TV or something like that. I
Yes.
was at a convention one time and they were talking and they said, and I'll get the numbers wrong so slightly. It says Walmart spends the average customer spends 19 minutes at a Walmart. You go in, but Walmart spends 19 minutes marketing to that customer when you go to Walmart. You get the signs, you get the this, you get the that, you got a greeter. And so Walmart's always marketing to you when you're at their store. But when a customer comes into a dealership, I think the average was like the average customer spends, say, 3 hours, 2.5, 3 hours at a dealership. We spend as little time as humanly possible having an interaction with that customer. We ship them off the drive, we run them into the waiting room, and then we rush them home. And then we call them 3 days later and say, "Do you have a good time? Do you have a good experience? Can I count on you for CSI?" And yet, that 2.5 hours that we have them in our store, we ignore them. And so it's like we're backwards right now, and we have that captured customer. We could do so much with them, but we ignore them and we send them home and we hope that we get great CSI. And so it was the craziest, for some reason, I think our mindset, my book is called Master of the Waiting Room. And it was because that's where I need you to be comfortable, is walking out and talking to people in the waiting room. And I remember once having a conversation after hours. We were going to go train and sit in the waiting room. And I had a group of service advisors go, "We don't go in there." And I'm like, "Why?" I'm like, "That's where the customers are." I'm like, "Yeah, but you got to be comfortable in that waiting room, or why are you here? If you don't want to have that customer face-to-face interaction and be willing to do that, it just goes off. It's just, you're in the wrong profession." I love the fact, I used to talk about all the time, back in the day when we first started working together, about going into the waiting room. We used to call it the Star Trek thing. It was the Kobayashi Maru, how we handled those customers, the no-win situation, because people, they were scared to death, and no matter what they did, it was wrong. And so that was the whole point of the book, was to be able to communicate with that customer the proper way in the waiting room in front of every other person. I just think it's important that we kind of get back to that mentality. Our podcast here, we're pushing up against that 30-minute mark. Appointment versus no appointment. What is the right answer? I guess it's up to everybody to decide for themselves. You're on mute. You muted yourself.
If you look at your schedule, I was printing something before, and I didn't want it to interrupt your
My
ramble.
rant.
No, I think that, whatever your shop load is, whatever your capacity is, you have to be smart about it, right? If you do 100 hours today, that's your limit. 100 hours, you're 2 hours in a row. We've talked about it before. You can do 50 ROs, right? You got to schedule a part of that for walk-ins. You have to leave room for that. You have to leave room for upsell. But, part of the equation, that's part of the, that's part of the nuance of being a manager. You have to figure that stuff out. And maybe it's 35 appointments a day in that case, what we're talking about just now, 100 hours, right? I need 50 cars. Maybe I take 35 appointments. But could you come up short? Yeah, you could come up short. But if you're answering the phones and you're telling people to come on down, there's a good chance you could fill the rest of the day up, right? So it's just a mindset. There's a lot of people that don't want that. They don't like that. They don't like it because they don't want the aggravation. What happens if we don't fill the day up, right? My technicians will be mad at me. My boss will be mad at me. And that's why most people are, let me fill the day up with 50 appointments. And, Steve, you want to bring your car in an oil change? All right, let me check the calendar. I got, 10 days from now, I can get you in for an oil change.
Yeah.
That's what happens. It's unfortunate, but, we have to do better at that. We really do.
Well, there's no question about it. And, I can always go back to strategy. I can always go back to, what do you want to do? What's your objective? And, thinking about that, do you always want to write 50 tickets a day? Or do you want to grow? Do you want to improve your business? And you got to look at it that way. And again, you said it, the capacity, right? I got this amount. This is what I'm going to get done. And we could go off on a whole thing about capacity. We could go on a thing about marketing and driving more traffic. But the bottom line does come back. You nailed it. It's, do I have the capacity to take care of business? And if I don't have the capacity, Well, you can push me out for 3 weeks and I'll go to Sun Devil Auto and he'll expand his business and he'll have 15 locations in Phoenix, Vegas, and Dallas. And you'll still be 3 weeks out trying to get, at 50 cars, not you, but a company will still be at 50 cars a day and be flat. And so I think that's really ultimately what's the strategy? What are you trying to get accomplished in your store today? So you might have to wrap us up here because we're definitely gone long and
Man, we went long again. Yeah, and again, listen, the GM tip of the day. I mean, I think this is something that you have to have, feet on the ground and your ears perked up, listening to what's going on. Right. I know this is a crazy thought, but maybe show up before 9 o'clock. Get in there a little early every once in a while. Listen to what some of you do. I know we have some GMs that do get in early, so I say that facetiously and kidding around, but those of you out there know, you stroll in at 9 o'clock and you come in the front door, come in the back door, come in at 7:30, come in at 8 o'clock, sit in the waiting room, have a cup of coffee, listen to what's going on with your customers, right? You don't have to have your name badge on. Just sit there and pretend you're a customer, listen.
Love that.
And then listen to what your advisors are doing. Listen to them chasing people away that they don't have an appointment, and that's where you have to get together with your service manager and help coach them up. Because again, that person just might be focused on risk management, making sure the day doesn't go to shit, right?
Right.
Some people don't like controlled chaos, and you have to understand that. So, manage your people, manage the process and try to help them out with your ears and your eyes. So that's all I
Awesome.
got on that one.
That's all I know. We've rambled. My brain is spinning right now, and so I think there's some great topics that could come out of this. So we'll have to. I think we got some topics for the next dozen or so.
I'll tell you what, I listen to the show and then I get more topics every time. So it's pretty good. It's a
Awesome.
never ending. It's like the song that never ends.
It is never ending. Well, it's good to see you, and I'll catch up to you when I get back from a vacation.
All right, Burrow. Travel safe.
All right.
Caution, fixed ops focus has caused spontaneous gross retention, advisor upsell frenzies, and service department harmony in clinical trials. Subscribe and like now across all platforms. Or suffer life-threatening around lunchtime dependency, callback overdose, and rare but fatal promoted to customer lounge greeter condition. No known cure except this podcast.